That's where most of my medical stuff is. I have a deep, deep, deep commitment to preventive care, especially around women's health. It's my specialty. So I am for healthy children, healthy babies, healthy, getting you the knowledge and the stuff and the way you want to take care of your body, and your body can look any way you want it to. The horns in your head, I don't care. If the horns make you happy, that sounds great, But it's freedom. Oh yeah, totally. So it's freedom too.
Yeah.
And it's a transformative experience. You don't get to this kind of happy place in this stuff is crumbling around us. Pink oil and all this stuff. It's monetary systems, debt's out of control. How are you going to be happy in all of that? How are you going to have the energy to do what you love when all of this is around you? By being for what you love. That's the DIY economy. The DIY economy, it runs on what you love. Because nobody can pay you to do it. This stuff, no one's going to, if there was money to do all this stuff, it would be getting done. This stuff isn't making money, and there's a reason why it doesn't make money. Because it can't be monetized. Your love cannot be monetized. But that's, I'll talk for 2 hours.
Well, maybe I'll talk about
Mary.
how you can make money.
There you go. That's a perfect segue.
Yeah.
So, I'm Mary. I'm going to just switch to my slides. Bear with me. So I made a local currency for my neighborhood, Brooklyn Torch. My neighborhood is North Brooklyn, so Greenpoint, Williamsburg, and Bushwick, which are the neighborhoods that I've lived in for 8 years. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I came to do that, my story, how I sort of decided to share my passion for both my neighborhood and, I'm an artist and I like visual things and I like being in front of people, and I thought that this was a good idea to bring all of my passions together and share it with my neighborhood. So my very first idea was, so I was unemployed and I had a lot of time and I really liked riding my bike in my neighborhood, and I would call my friends and I would say, hey, let's go hang out in the park. And my friends would be like, but I don't have any money. And I was like, but it's the park. And it's outside. But there's a sense that we can't leave the house without money because we're somehow going to get seduced into buying something once we're outside of our safe home. So I had this idea, this was a germinating idea, that I would create an ATM on a bike. So I would bring you cash to wherever you were so that you would have it and so that you could facilitate yourself into exchange and being with other people that you want to be with. And so when I started thinking about this project and how it was going to work, how I was like sort of physically going to mount a lockbox on my bike and fill it with cash, and how I started asking people, and all of my friends, all of my advisors were like, you will definitely get punched, you will suffer physical violence because you're going to have cash in a bike, and that's obviously a bad idea. And I sort of resisted it for a while. I would say like a couple months. I was like, why? Why would anyone hit me if I'm providing the service? So like, why is there expectation of physical violence when I'm trying to share something that I think we all need a need? And I realized that I needed to go deeper and think a little bit about trust and what it was that we're actually exchanging. What we're really exchanging when we exchange money is actually a trust relationship and an understanding that we're not going to punch each other, actually. So I started really kind of looking at what opportunities there were in this space, and I came across local currencies, and I decided that I would make one. It seemed to, follow that if I wanted to give people money, then I could just make it Hopefully people wouldn't punch me to get the money that I was making for us to use as a tool. No one has yet. So I'll keep you posted on that. But that's sort of thing that I decided to start with. And then around the same time, there was this group called Feast, which is funding emerging artists through sustainable tactics. It's a dinner party where members of the community pay $20. They get a ballot. They listen to presentations from artists to decide what kind of work they want to produce in their community. So it's sort of participatory budgeting, but it's also micro grants. The artists who received the most votes at the end would get the money from the door. So it was like a one-night grant situation. There was no extra stuff you had to do. So I presented and I ended up getting some small funds, but what mattered to me more than the funds was actually that I proposed it to the community and the community said that they wanted it. And so I felt a great responsibility to follow through more on the votes than the money. And that was also another way of digesting that I was actually producing something for people, and there was a trust relationship with the votes. With the money that I received, I decided to go back to the community, and I had an installation at an art gallery, but it was also sort of like a community space where I asked people what they wanted to spend torches on. If I'm going to make this, A, who's going to be on it? Do you think you belong on it? And where do you think you'd like to spend it? So kind of giving me a roadmap to pursue. And it was really fun to have people sort of respond to my questions in a very positive and creative way. So I was sort of sourcing my own creativity through the community as well. And then I decided that I would look at how I spent my money, how I met small business owners, and just sort of document as an artist and always interested in the visual form. So I was really interested in who our business owners were, what I thought of, who I could use as examples of the small business owners that were doing something meaningful. So Danny Oliver has a digital studio in Dumbo, which was super interested in how a local currency could work for her growing business. I met with Samira and Jeff from the Brooklyn Cooperative Bank, which is a co-op in Bushwick. We talked about how we could build a banking relationship with the local currency so that people wouldn't have to come directly to me to get torches. And Brooklyn Kitchen is just sort of like a growing business in Williamsburg that I think they now, is it them that has another location, I think? Anyway, they're just a really good example of very community-minded. They do a lot of cooking classes. They do kids cooking classes. They're into both education and providing cookware to cook in your home, which I think is also a piece of things that gets lost in New York, where we can eat out all over the place. To remind that we are the experts and that we do know how to cook our own food, and it's something to share and to learn from each other how we can prepare a meal. So jump, but one of the things when I started figuring out who was going to help me print this currency was going back to trust. How are you going to fight counterfeit? Which I had this really, it was a very similar reaction to who's going to punch me? Why would you counterfeit a local currency? And my initial reaction was no one is going to do that. Only jerks do that, and in my world there are no jerks. So why do I need to do this? But I realized that there was this next level of in order for people to trust the currency and to trust me, they wanted to know that there was that it was trustworthy, and I had to sort of like jump the hurdle of this imaginary ghost of counterfeit. So there's a counterfeit measure. I serialize every bill, and I have a custom hand embossed stamp. And it ended up being really fun to make those things. So,
what's in the bottom right corner? It's like the same actual stamping.
This is actual printing. Yeah, this is the Heidelberg, which is really fun to see in action. This is me hand stamping and embossing. And these are the bills. So I also went through a design process where I had community members tell me what they wanted on the bills. And I, through a process of lots and lots of research, we decided that we wanted a map on the back and that we wanted people to be able to draw on the bill. One of the things that I think, we're told we're not supposed to face the dollar. And this was like, oh, but we can make our own rules, and this would be a really useful rule to draw yourself on that map so that you would know. So when the money gets circulated, it's evidence who's using it and how they can use it. The sort of like inspiration for how you can use this alternative currency exists on the back of the map, on the back of the bill that you're holding.
Didn't have to choose between cat people and dog people.
Right. The animals were. This was like me trying to source all of the animals locally. So this dog on the top is a mechanic's dog. The squirrel is one that I photographed in a park. And I did my best to do a bodega cat. But just one side thing I'll say. I showed this to a group of fifth graders, and the teacher asked, who do you think this money is for? And half of the kids were like, animals, obviously. It's for the animals to spend. Which I love that. I love that.
Animal currency.
Yeah. What do the animals spend money on?
I don't have enough nuts. What am I going to do?
So I printed this money, and I was like, well, what are we going to do with it? And I don't want to stack it in my living room. I want to spend it. So I constructed this trade store where I had people bring me items. We decided a fair price in torches. I would pay them, give them a receipt, and then they could buy from the former trades that I, so I created this store and this appraisal situation. So people came, sold me a book, and they went to the next table and bought something on the table. So I held one a month in 2012.
What is the money back with?
So we do, I'm glad you asked. Let's see if I can find a slide. So we do a one-to-one with the dollar, which is really about helping you understand what value exists. And because I think when we were looking at, sort of fixing it to a historical value of the dollar, it gets a little complicated with math, and I wanted to remove a math barrier, and just make it one-to-one, and then we could decide from there what value meant after we just agreed that it was the unit of measure was already the dollar. But then what I did when we got to the appraisal space is, this is my friend Morgan, she gave me, I would say, what do you think this is worth in torches? She'd say, I think it's worth 2 torches. And because I'm stimulating the economy, I decided to overpay her. So I decided that was actually worth 5 torches. So that she was getting, as I mentioned before, I was really interested in plenty and how I can give more. It's okay to give it away, and have people feel like they had money to spend. They weren't just getting the very small amount of money that they felt they were worth, but rather more, and so that they could feel that they also were granted currency to spend. So this is sort of like how I demonstrated. Person A goes in and has a thing with a question mark and gets the money. It's sort of like my just an illustration of how it works. And I held a whole bunch of these trades and ended up partnering with people like Lisa, actually, for a scavenger hunt where Lisa held a scavenger hunt bike ride in our neighborhood. And one of the stops was us. And each one of the riders who arrived received 5 little torches before reading their clue to move on to the next location.
And the prize winnings
The
were
prize
torches,
winnings were torches, right. Thank you for reminding me that.
which are appreciated right now.
Yes. I appreciate that. And another great partnership was with this board game called Coopoly, which is it's a play on Monopoly. The idea is that you have to work together. Everyone wins or everyone loses. You make cooperative decisions. And I stumbled across them looking for how to hack Monopoly with my own currency, and then found them and realized that their game is much more educational. You know, like, how do we get to the place where we understand how to cooperate and how to be positive? I think part of that's through gameplay, and finding this game, I was really just, I fell in love with this game and invited them to come down and demonstrate. And the winnings of this game were in torches as well. We translated your game currency to alternative currency, and so everyone that played got currency. So this is just more pictures of me trading with people, types of things that have come and gone through the system. So a couple of cameras, some DVDs, a nice bag. It's hard to see, but this is a belt, a jacket, and a book. And this is sort of like going back to like art as currency. This is Rio Kiribajana's t-shirt that he had made for this other project involving pies. So I bought that shirt from her. So just to sort of like exemplify that, you know, like I do not have a degree in economics. I read Marx. I've been doing this project for 5 years. I read Marx at the halfway point. I really wasn't conversant with any of these terms. I wanted to figure it out on myself. I took the agency to learn something by doing, and this is just sort of my story about how it works. And you know, it's been a really fun, enjoyable experience. We do have a registry of service providers. So just you know, quick note, we do not have any storefronts who accept the currency, but we do have a bunch of individuals. And that's really, I think, the most important thing to think about is not how does a dollar work, but rather how does a local currency work. And it works by individuals agreeing to participate and agreeing to trade with each other. So they continue to circulate or appreciate. This is my, oh, I didn't pass my phone around, but should you choose to have a look, just pass this around. And that's the end.
Yay!